Vikings, let's win the game.
The Minnesota Vikings are facing a major dilemma. On one side, there's a quarterback fighting to avoid being cut and keep his spot on the roster. On the other, Kevin O'Connell is under pressure to decide who will become the face of this franchise moving forward. Meanwhile, both the defense and the offense are being linked to two notable names, and one of them is a player many fans don't want anywhere near this team. So what decision will Nolan Teasley ultimately make? These are four very different stories, but they're all connected by the same theme: the Vikings' 2026 season. The first story involves a difficult truth that a lot of Vikings fans probably don't want to face. When training camp opens, there will be 4 quarterbacks in that room. By the time the regular season arrives, there will likely be only 3. And all signs point to Max Brosmer being the odd man out. The former Minnesota Golden Gophers quarterback arrived with something many players never get: a built-in connection with the local fan base. There was excitement. There was pride. There was hope that a hometown kid could somehow carve out a future in the NFL wearing purple and gold. But the NFL has never been a league that rewards good stories over production. During his rookie season, Brosmer got legitimate chances to prove himself. He appeared in 7 games and made 2 starts. Unfortunately, the numbers didn't do him any favors. 4 interceptions, 0 touchdown passes. Those are tough statistics to overcome when you're fighting for a roster spot. Meanwhile, Carson Wentz still brings something coaches value tremendously: experience. In a quarterback room filled with uncertainty, that matters, and hovering above all of it is the race everyone in Minnesota is watching. Kevin O'Connell has made it clear that J.J. McCarthy and Kyler Murray will enter camp on equal footing. Reps have been split. The battle is real, but eventually somebody has to take control of the first-team offense. Somebody has to become the face of this season. And when that moment comes, roster math could push Brosmer toward the practice squad. It's tough because fans always want local success stories to work out. We want to believe. But football is brutally honest. It doesn't care where you came from. It only cares what happens when the ball is snapped. For Brosmer, that reality is getting harder to ignore, and that makes the next few months incredibly important for everyone involved in this quarterback room. But while the first story is about who could be leaving, the second story is really about who should be staying at the top of the depth chart. And honestly, this conversation is a lot more complicated than it seems, because even though Kyler Murray is viewed by many around the league as the favorite to win the starting job, there's a strong argument that the best thing that could happen to the Vikings is J.J. McCarthy winning QB1 outright. Think about it. When Minnesota spent a top draft pick on McCarthy, the plan was never to find a temporary solution. The plan was to build a future, a young quarterback on a rookie contract, a chance to spend resources building a complete roster around him. That was always the vision, and now reports are emerging that McCarthy has made real strides in areas the coaching staff specifically wanted him to improve. According to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, McCarthy has worked extensively on varying his throws and layering the football with more precision. By all accounts, the improvement has been significant. And that matters because if McCarthy earns this job, the Vikings keep their original blueprint alive. There's another angle to this discussion as well. Kyler Murray could become an extremely valuable trade asset. If he performs well throughout camp and demonstrates he can still be a quality starter, Minnesota could potentially flip him for meaningful draft capital down the road. Then there's the financial side of the equation, and this is where things become especially important for the long-term outlook of the franchise. If Murray thrives in 2026, the Vikings could find themselves facing a massive dilemma. Do you let another successful quarterback walk away, or do you commit huge money to a talented player with a history of injuries and long-term questions? It's impossible not to think about recent memories that still sting for this fan base. That's why, as strange as it may sound, McCarthy's success might actually represent the healthiest outcome for the organization. The challenge is that Kyler Murray didn't come to Minnesota to sit on the bench and watch someone else take his shot. If both quarterbacks play well, Kevin O'Connell could eventually find himself facing one of the toughest decisions of his tenure. But before we continue, a quick favor from one fan to another: subscribe to the channel and leave a comment. The fans' opinions truly matter. Speaking of difficult decisions, let's shift to the defensive side of the football, where a debate continues to build. Most people seem to agree that the Vikings could still use another edge rusher before the season begins. The disagreement comes when discussing which veteran makes the most sense. One name that continues to surface is Haason Reddick, but not everyone is convinced that's a good idea. In fact, some believe Minnesota should stay far away. And honestly, there's logic behind that position. If you look at Reddick's resume, you see a player who was once one of the most dangerous pass rushers in football. Multiple double-digit sack seasons, Pro Bowls, and all-pro selection. The kind of defender quarterbacks hate seeing across the line of scrimmage. But football is about what you are now, not what you were 3 years ago. Last season with Tampa Bay, Reddick finished with only 2.5 sacks. For a player whose primary value comes from getting after the quarterback, that's concerning. Some analysts point to advanced metrics and pass rush win rates that suggest he was more effective than the raw numbers indicate. Others see a veteran whose best football may already be behind him. That's the heart of this argument. Brian Flores loves versatility. He loves players who can operate within complex defensive packages. There are reasons to see a fit, but there's also risk, especially when other veteran options remain available. Players like Jadeveon Clowney, Leonard Floyd, Kyle Van Noy, and several others are still sitting on the market. The good news is Minnesota isn't desperately searching for a starter. Dallas Turner and Andrew Van Ginkel remain the foundation of the edge group. What this team really needs is quality depth, somebody who can contribute without forcing the front office into an unnecessary gamble. And sometimes those under-the-radar decisions end up mattering more than the headline-grabbing ones. Now we get to what might be the most talked-about possibility of all, because it centers around a question that almost sounds ridiculous. Could the Vikings really decide they want even more firepower at wide receiver? At first glance, it feels excessive. After all, Justin Jefferson is already here. Jordan Addison continues to develop. Jawan Jennings was added to strengthen the receiving core even further. The room already looks loaded, but there are still whispers that Minnesota could make one more surprising move. Two names stand out immediately: DeAndre Hopkins and Deebo Samuel. Two former All-Pros, two highly respected veterans, and two players who could turn a very good receiving group into something downright terrifying. Hopkins has already publicly expressed interest in playing with Kyler Murray again. That alone adds another dimension to this entire quarterback situation. Meanwhile, Deebo Samuel remains one of the most unique offensive weapons in football when healthy. He can beat defenses as a receiver. He can hurt you as a runner. He forces defensive coordinators to rethink their game plans. Of course, there's another side to this conversation. Every veteran signing means one fewer opening for a young player fighting to make the roster. And the Vikings have several young receivers who deserve a chance to develop. But just imagine it for a second. Jefferson, Addison, Jennings, plus either Hopkins or Samuel. Imagine Kevin O'Connell designing plays with that kind of arsenal. Imagine opposing defenses trying to account for every weapon on the field. Suddenly, there would be absolutely no excuses for whoever wins the QB1 job. Not for Kyler Murray, not for J.J. McCarthy. Maybe this move never happens. Maybe it remains nothing more than off-season speculation. But the fact that this conversation even exists tells you how aggressively this organization believes it can compete right now. And that confidence says a lot about where the Vikings see themselves heading. At the end of the day, Vikings Nation, everything keeps coming back to one question. Who's going to lead this football team when Week 1 arrives? Because nearly every story we talked about today connects back to that answer. McCarthy's future, Murray's opportunity, potential trades, possible offensive reinforcements. Every piece is tied together. And that's exactly why this summer feels so important for the purple and gold. The quarterback decision won't just impact one position. It could influence the direction of the entire roster moving forward. Now I want to hear from you. Who should be the starting quarterback when the season begins? And which story caught your attention the most? Thank you for being here, for being part of this incredible community, and for continuing to ride every high and every low with this team. As always, we keep believing, we keep hoping, and we keep defending the North. Stay tuned. Skol Vikings, let's go.